Okay, so basically we will be covering how to create a scene using 3ds Max and vray, and then we will move to the animation a little bit. This session will not cover all the materials that will be with you in the final exam, so just make sure that you go through all the materials that we've explained in the class, in INTD314 class. Just go through it, and if you have any questions, let me or any of your instructors know about them. So I'll start by sharing my screen first. Okay. So in this session, I will cover some of the problems that I've noticed that a lot of you had whenever you were asking me some questions or anything. One of the most important things I've noticed that some of you, they're not using the units when they were working. So just make sure when you open 3ds Max, just go to customize unit setup and change the units to metric, and then you can choose whichever unit that you want. So let's say I'll go with millimeters, which is for me is the best unit to use for interior design, as you can measure details as well. In the system unit setup, don't forget to change that as well to millimeters, and then OK and OK. So now our units are set. Another thing that I've noticed that when you're working, you have files for all the 3D Max that you have, or they are always folder inside a folder inside a folder, which will create some problems when you're working with 3D Max. So always make sure that you start clean on your desktop, not inside, for example, UOP, first semester or 2016, first semester, and then INTD314, project 1. So all of this, it will create some issues getting to the maps or the materials, which will result in you having some missing maps. So from your desktop, just create a new folder. Inside this folder, create these folders that will help you be organized. So I'll create one for 3ds Max, as we will have a lot of copies when we are working. We will not just keep one copy. And then a folder for blocks, IES, maps, and renders. And inside maps, I will add a folder for materials. We will add the materials inside here, but then we will take the maps and put them outside. Okay, so this will just help us be organized and not have any issues in any missing materials or IES files. So after we created this, we'll open 3ds Max, change the units. The second thing that I like to do when I open any 3D Max file is to open angle snap. So angle snap is something that you will use to rotate when you rotate any object, it will rotate with a specific angle. So in this case, if I right click on angle snap, you will see that my angle is set for 5 degrees. So when I rotate any object, it will rotate like this: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on. Why do I keep 5 degrees? Because it's easier for me to reach 45, 30, 60, the basic angles, and any other angle that I want. Otherwise, if you change it, for example, to 45, when you rotate, it will rotate 45 at a time. Okay, so for me, I prefer to keep it always at 5 degrees. So after I open Angular Snap, I will start with saving this file before even start working on it. So I'll go here to File, Save, and then I will go to my folder inside 3ds Max. Let's say that this is dining room. And then I will click here on plus. Plus will add a number after this name. So when I click on plus, it will be saved as dining room 01. Why am I doing this? Whenever I'm creating anything, I'm working in the file. After, for example, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I will go back to File, Save As, and then click on a plus again. So this will save it as dining room 02. Why I'm doing this? Because sometimes the file will crash, or you will add a block to it, or anything else that will make this file corrupted. So if it's corrupted, you can always go back to the copy before that. So you'll have a lot of copies, and your file will get heavier by the minute. Whenever you're adding anything to it, it will become heavier. So if you like, after, for example, if you have like 15, 20 copies, and you see that your computer is not adjusting well to the amount of files that you have, then you can start deleting from the beginning. Okay, I usually prefer to keep the first one, which usually is just the structure of the room, and then for the second one, I'll start delete from the second one, and so on, and I will keep the last 2 or 3 copies just in case I face any issues. Okay. So let's start first with one more thing before we start. Let's adjust the auto back. So I'll go here to File, Preferences, and make sure that you go here to Files and Enable Auto Back. A lot of you, when they lose any file, they don't know how to get the auto back version. The auto back setup here that 3D Max will do, it will not save on the same file that you're working on. You will find it in a different folder. So just make sure that you enable it. Make sure that the number of autoback files are 3 to 5, not more than that. You will not need anything more than that. I usually use 5 because usually I'm working on 2 files at a time. So I need to make sure that I have this amount of autoback. If you're working on 1 file only, you can keep it as 3. That's enough. The other thing that you need to adjust here is the backup interval. Okay, so every 60 minutes or every 30 minutes or every 5 minutes, which is the standard, 3D Max will take a break. You will feel that it's stuck, but it will be auto-saving. So if your file is heavy and every 5 minutes it will auto back, this means that every 5 minutes you'll have to wait for 15-30 minutes until your file saves the auto back version. So just make sure that you adjust this so you don't face any issues or any problems when you're working. For me, I prefer to keep it as 60 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on how fast I'm working on my files. Okay, so I just click on OK. Why did I save 3D Max before I start working? Because this will make sure that my auto backup is working as well. Okay, let's say I lost this file. I will just go to Document, 3ds Max, and then auto back. In here you will find the auto back files, and you'll have the recover files as well. So for now, let me just delete any extra things. This is how your folder will look. Okay, not even this. So I set up the number of auto back to 5. So if I change this order by name, you will see that I have from 1 to 5. Okay, but this doesn't necessarily mean that the last one is number 5. Okay, because what will happen is it will start now auto back 1, then after 60 minutes auto back 2, 3, 4, and 5. When it's done, it will save on auto backup 1. So just make sure that you change the date and check the latest one, which is 23rd, for example, at 256. So let's say this is the one that I need. Just copy it. Don't open it from here. Make sure that you copy it and then go to the folder that you're working at, and then 3ds Max, paste here and change the name. Okay, so this is dining room 03. And then open it and continue working regularly. Okay, so for now I don't need this version. I will just delete it and move to 3ds Max. So here in 3ds Max, I've noticed that a lot of you, they are not using any shortcuts. So we will be covering a lot of the shortcuts today as well. So the first one is when we are working, we have 4 different viewports. For me, I prefer working with 1 only. This makes my life easier. My computer doesn't get stuck whenever I have any heavy files. So to switch to 1 viewport, you can click on Alt and W to switch back, or you can use this icon. Okay, so this is to maximize and minimize the viewport, or the shortcut is Alt and W. So now, if I want to move to any other view, let's say I want the top view, just click on T. T will go to the top view. F will go to the front view. L will go to the left view. And then I have P for perspective. Okay. These shortcuts, you can find them here as well. So I have two types of 3D views here, perspective and orthographic. Perspective is the one that you're seeing here. And then if I click on you will see the orthographic kind of view. So top, bottom, front, back, left, and right, they are all types of orthographic views. Some of you, when you were rendering the sections or the plans from 3ds Max, you just clicked here on top. This is not the top view, okay? Or if you click here on the front view, this is not the front view. So if I move anything here, you can see the size, which means this is the 3D view. So 3D view means that this is a perspective view. So if you want, you can either click here on left and then click on new to change it to an orthographic view, or you can just go to the view that you want. So let's say I want the front, F, and then it will go to the front view. Okay, so this is an orthographic view if you can see any of these names, or if you can see orthographic. If it says perspective or camera, this is not acceptable for elevations, sections, and plans. Okay, so let's go to the top view again. I have this grid here. If you want to use this grid, you can. Otherwise, I will just click on G to close this grid. And then I have a plan that I want to work on. So this is my plan. I'll just make sure that the units in AutoCAD and 3D Max are the same. Then drag this plan here and import file. Okay, so now I have this plan. We have another shortcut, which is Z. Z is for zoom in and zoom out. So if I click on Z, it will zoom out on everything that I have in the file. So let's say if I have, for example, this box and this box and this one. So if I'm here and I'm not selecting anything, how do you know if you're selecting anything or not? When you go to modify, you will see that there is nothing here. Okay, so if I click on Z, it will zoom on everything that I have in this file. But then if I want to zoom in on this object, I can just click on it and click on Z. So it will zoom on this object on. Okay, so this is one of the things as well that I've noticed a lot of you struggling with. Sometimes you will just zoom out and don't know what to do, so you can just select any object and click on Z and it will zoom on this object. Again, sometimes when you're using a camera and you want to go to the top view or the front view or even perspective, you don't want to change the camera location, you can just click on P, which will transform it from a camera view to a perspective view, and then use Z. Okay, so I have this plan now. I'll just model it quickly using lines. Of course, you can use box, you can use anything else. I just want to cover the line part because I've noticed a lot of issues with that as well. So in create, as you know, we have geometry, which is for 3D objects, and we have shapes, which is for 2D objects. So I'll go here to line, and then I'll make sure that I open snap. Click here on snap 2. Okay, so snap 2 is for anything on the X and Y axis on the ground level, on the 0 level. Anything above that, I will not be able to select. Also, I will right-click here on 2 and make sure that I select vertex and endpoint. I don't need any of the other things unless you want the midpoint as well. You can do that. Then I will start from here because I have a curve. You can, of course, make one of the creation methods, the initial type corner and the second one smooth, and you go over it. For now, I will create 2 different lines and then we will work with that. So I will start from here, just click, go all over or around all the straight lines. And now I will close this line. Okay, then I will take an arch and I'll start from here to here. and then to here. Okay, so now I have two different lines. This is the first one, and then this is the arch is the second. So select any of these lines, go here and convert it to editable SP line, and then go to SP line and select attach and attach this line. Okay, so let me just copy this here on the side. Now, this line, you can see it as one continuous line, but if you go here to vertex, you will see that you have these lines here. They might be, if I move this one, you will see that it's broken. They are not one vertex, okay? So we have two vertices here above each other. So if you go now to extrude, which is an issue that a lot of you ask me about, if I go now to extrude and increase the amount, let's say to 500, okay, you will see that only the edges are extruding. This is because the line is broken, so it cannot extrude it all as one object. So let me go back to editable SP line, go to vertex. So now I will select these two vertices. Some of you, they will just click on this vertex, which is wrong because, again, I'm just selecting one vertex. So make sure that you create a selection this way, and then go to fuse, and then weld. Okay, now it's one object or one vertex. So if I click here and then move, it's one vertex. Okay, so again, fuse, what will do, it will just make them closer to each other, because if I select these two, for example, and click on weld, it will not weld anything because I have a specific amount for welding. Anything in the range of 1 millimeter, it will be welded to one vertex. So when I click on fuse, it will bring them both together, and then weld will create one vertex. Okay, so let's just repeat that on this line. So I'll just go to vertex. One more thing from the shortcuts we have, when we have editable SP line or editable poly, we can go through these types of selection using the keyboard. So 1 is for vertex, 2 is for edges or segments, and 3 is for SP line. So instead, if you're working here, instead of going to select vertex, come back, go down, come back, this will take a lot of time from you. Okay, so even if you're not in modify, even if you're in create, whenever you select a line, you know that this is an editable SP line. Just to click on one, it will automatically open the vertices here. So I will select these two vertices, go to fuse and weld, select these two, fuse and weld, click on one again to close the selection. Okay, so now I'm back to the editable SP line without selecting any vertices. Now the second thing that I want to do is to make an offset towards outside. So in this case, I will go to 3, which is the SP line itself. Okay, so after you select SP line, you'll select this line here. Okay, which is now all one line. Go down to outline and then type here, for example, 200. This will create an offset towards outside. Sometimes you will need to type minus 200. So let's say that when I type 200, it comes inside. Then you will click, or you will type minus 200. So this will invert the selection. In this case, I don't need the minus. I'll just click here, or I'll just type 200, and that's it. Then I have my editable SP line ready. I'll add modifiers and then extrude. Now I'll have this object extruded, or the sign extruded. So let's say that the walls are 3000. So I'll keep it this way. Now for the flooring, I have the same thing. So Control and V will create a copy from this selection. So Control V, you can either select copy, instance, or reference. For now, I'll just select copy. And then let's go to the editable SP line, because I don't need the double edges. So let's go here. go to SP line and then select the inner line. Delete it. Now you will be left with the outer line only. So when you click on edit editable SP line and go to extrude, you will see it all extruded. I'll just change the color so you can see the difference between both objects. Okay, so it will be this one. Now I will change the amount to -200 and I have my floor. Then I will select here snap 3, shift, because snap 3 will help me move in the Z axis. So shift and move this object to the top here. And then you can either create a copy or an instance. This is up to you. Okay, so now we're done with this structure. We have the openings only, which you already know how to create. I'll just go through them quickly. So I'll select a box, open snap, make sure it's snap 2 so I don't get any issues with height. And then I will add this box, increase the width just to make sure that it intersects with the wall, and then change the height to the height that you want. So let's say I want 2100. And then I will do the same for the window. So I'll start from here to here, click anywhere for the height, go to modify, change the height to, for example, let's say 2500 or 2800. This is up to you again. And then increase the length here to make sure that it intersects with the object. So this is the window that I have. In the top view, I want to move it a little, or in the Z axis, I want to move it a little bit. So just make sure when you want to move anything to right click on move and then use the offset values. If you use these values here, they're not always correct. So if you want to move in the X axis 200, you cannot just type 200. This will move it somewhere else. Okay. So just make sure that you go here to the offset part, and then in the Z axis, for example, I want to move it up 100. Okay, so now I have the location of the box. I will select the walls and then go to compound object. Then we have a Boolean and prop Boolean. Some of you, they're using prop Boolean for everything. That is okay, but sometimes it will create some issues. Okay, so if I have more than one object, I will use prop Boolean. Otherwise, I will use Boolean if I have one object only. So for now, I will select prop Boolean, start picking, and pick these two objects. Now we're done with the structure. We can start with the blocks and the materials. So you already know that if you have any blocks from 3D Sky website, this will help you in terms of materials. You will not need to repeat any of the materials. But whatever blocks you download, just make sure that, let me just delete these, make sure that you keep them all in one place in the blocks. Okay, so if I go now here to the view, you can see that I have the image and I have the archive file. What I will do now, I'll just go to list again, or even details, and then I will order them by type and then select these archive files, right click, extract each archive to a separate folder. Okay, so this is if you want to make them, or if you want to extract them all at once. Otherwise, whenever you download anything, just make sure that you right click on it and then extract to the folder itself. Some of the students, they are not doing this step. They are just opening the archive file and dragging the 3D Max file from inside it. So this will result in you losing your maps as well. Okay. So let's start with this room. Let's say, for example, let me just make these a bit smaller. So let's start with the door, which is 11948. So I'll go to this folder, and then I have the 3D Max file and I have the maps. For me, what I prefer to do is select these maps, go to copy, and then go to maps and paste them here. So I have all my maps in one place. Okay. Then I'll go to the block itself, drag it and paste it here. And then make sure that you select merge file, not open, which will open the block in a different file, and not X reference, which will make it very hard to move here, and we didn't explain this part of 3D Max. So I'll just go to merge file, place it, make sure that you don't have any extra things, any extra elements that you need to delete. Make sure that it's one group. So if I select this, okay, you'll see that it's not one group. So I prefer that you group everything from the beginning so you don't lose any small details that you have in the block. So group, let's say this is the door. Okay, go to the top of view. And then you can rotate this 90 degrees. Move it, you can use snap if you would like to. So let's say I will move this here. So in this case, I'll go to snap 2.5. So I can select this point and I can move it wherever I want. Okay, just go to editable poly, because if you're using scale, it will scale a lot of things. So let's just go to perspective. So P, Z, and then Alt and scroll for rotate. Okay, you'll see that the materials are missing here. They're still not here, so we'll solve this issue later. For now, what I need to do is add editable poly or edit poly to it, and then go to vertex, which is number 1 on your keyboard. Select all of these vertices. Let's just go to the top of view, which will make it easier. Make sure that snap is open and move this to this part. Okay, so now this part is okay. Again, P, Z, and then you can rotate. Okay, so no need, I still don't have any camera, but I can still see inside my space. Just make sure that the height as well is fine. If you have any issues with the height, solve them as well. So let's say I will take this part and then I'll move it a little bit to the top. Now I have my door. If I want to add the materials and I don't want any issues with the material, we have something very important to do, which is the render setup. Okay, so I'll go here to render setup. We've given you a render setup file before, so I'll just go here to load preset and then select the render setup that you want to have. Okay, so let me just check this quickly. Okay, let me just check for that since I forgot to copy it. So this is the preset that we have. I'll just copy it and make sure, just make sure that you always have a folder that is special for these things. For example, for maps, IES, blocks, and so on. Okay, so I'll just select this render setup. Make sure that you load it. Now your render is vray advanced. Okay. Here you can change the width and height. So you have the image aspect here, which you can see if you click on Shift and F to open the save frame. Okay, so you see this frame here that will show you exactly what you will be rendering. So if I change the image aspect here, which is the ratio between the length and the width, so if I change it, you will see that it will change. So if you're rendering a section, for example, you can increase and decrease the image aspect to fit your section, and instead of rendering full image in 1.4, which is this way, and then your section will be just in this area and all the areas above and below are empty. So you're wasting time rendering something that you don't need. So you can change the image aspect and then you can render the section, for example. Okay, in this case, I want to render an A4 image, so I will change this to 1.414 and then I will lock it. And then you can change the width. Usually for the final render, it's 2000. For now, if we're practicing, I will change this to 500, and that's it. Just make sure that you don't forget to change this width when you're rendering the final render. Otherwise, your render will be pixelated and it will not be presentable. Okay. Okay, so if you want to add the material, what you're doing is correct. You have to select the editable poly and then add the material to the whole object. But there is one thing that it might be an issue for you. I'm not sure if this is what you're doing. Let me just go to materials. So M to change to open the material editor, and let's select this object. So here you can see that I have two materials. I will create another one, a separate one from the beginning. So I just click on standard, change this to vray material, which is what you need to do in case you're working with vray. Change the name here to, let's see, wood, and then I will start working on the material settings. So if I go here to diffuse, I don't want a color, I want a wooden object. This means I'm sorry about this. I think the connection, there was an issue with the connection. So I'll just repeat this quickly. Regarding regarding the materials, if you have any modifiers that you have here, let's say I have taper, I have any modifier. If you have any modifier and you start working with the material, so let's say I have this modifier here. Okay, let me just make sure that everything is fine. Yeah. Okay, if you have any modifier added here to your object, it will be harder to create the material. So let's say I have taper, I have any other modifier. So in this case, most of you, what you will do is you will add edit poly. Okay, so if you add edit poly to your object and then want to add the material, let's say that the object is all one material. In this case, what you need to do is you need to go to each element and give it a unique ID. Okay, so if I want this object, and this object to be one material, I will set the ID to 1, and then select these two and set the ID to 2, and then select this one and set it, for example, to 3, and so on. So when you change the ID, okay, after that you will need to create a multi-sub-object material. So I will click on standard, type multi-sub-object material, and then I will add this material to ID number 1, this material to ID number 2, and then this material, this material to ID number 3. Okay, so in this case, when I apply this material now, it will give me these different materials. Okay, and instead of doing all of this, what I prefer to do is from the beginning, let's say that now we have this material. From the beginning, what I will do, I will just right click and collapse all. When you collapse everything, it will collapse to an editable poly. In this case, you can easily just select the objects, select the material, and then assign them. Okay, so select these two, for example, select this material and assign it. And it will do all the things that I've said previously automatically. You don't have to do anything else. It will all be ready this way. Okay, so now if I select this material from the door, it will give me this multi-sub-object material with these 3 materials that I've used. Okay, so I hope I answered your question. Let's move to something else. If you have any questions, just write them and I'll answer them. Okay, so let's move to something else. So now let's create the materials first. So this is the walls, or these are the walls that I have here, and then I have the ceiling and the flooring. So let's go to the flooring part. So from here, I click on vray MTL. I'll just cover the materials quickly because if we ask you to do any material, you're supposed to know the settings, and then accordingly you will decide what you want to do. So if we go here to diffuse, this is the color of the material. Before anything, just make sure that you change the names. So let's say that this will be a marble material. The diffuse is the color of the material, as you already know. So if you're just using the color, if you're just like creating a mirror or plastic or wall paint or anything, you can just keep the diffuse color here and select whatever you want. Otherwise, if you have anything with more than one color, or if you have textures or something like that, you can add a bitmap. So as I said, you can click in here, select bitmap, and then go to the images that you've saved. Okay, always make sure that your image is seamless, so you don't have any lines in between. So I'll go here to maps, and then let's say I'll go to marble, and I'll select this one, for example, or this one. This is up to you. Okay, so now I have my map here. This is not enough. If you do this and stop here, this is not realistic at all. Okay, so you need to add the other settings. So we have reflection, which is the glossiness part of the material. In this case, I will open the background so I can see the effects. For the reflections, we can go from black, which is matte, to white, which is glossy, and you can switch in between. If I go here to glossy, you will see that I have the maximum reflection, but still it's not a mirror, which is the maximum reflection. So we have two types of reflection. We have the regular one, which makes the surfaces glossy, and then we have the reflective surfaces such as mirrors, chrome, screens, anything that will reflect, or you will see yourself in it if you're standing in front of it. So if I want a reflective surface, I need to remove the tick from personal reflections. So now you will see that it turned into a mirror. Okay, if you want a less reflection, you can make it less from here. Okay. Another thing that we can do is change the R glossiness, which will create a matte surface, but still you will see the effect of lighting on the surface. So let's say if I change it to 0.7, for example, you will see these shiny spots, but again, okay, you will see these shiny spots, but it will not reflect, or it will not be glossy. Okay, so in this case, I don't want to change it. I'll keep it as 1. Then we have the maximum depth, which you will use whenever you have a few mirrors in front of each other, or any reflective surfaces that are near each other, which will result in black spots in your render. So if you notice any black spots in a reflective material, just go to the maximum depth and increase it, for example, to 10, 20, 25, whatever solves your problem. Then you can stop. Just make sure that you don't increase it a lot, because this will increase the time of your render. Okay. So that's it for the reflection. We don't need to do anything else in that. For the refraction, this is if your object is opaque or we have any refraction in it. So if you change that, you can start seeing through the object. According to your object, you can adjust the amount of refraction that you want. Okay, so this is not similar to the opacity map that we have here. Okay, so in maps we have diffuse, we have reflect, we have refract, and we have all the other options that we have. So we have the refraction here. Okay, we have refract and we have opacity. Refract will make your object clear. Okay, it is still there. Like for example, the glass, it's there. You will see some reflections on it. Sometimes you will see some colors on it. It will not disappear. But for opacity, it will cut through the material. So for example, if I add a black and white map here to the opacity, what it will do, it will cut the black parts. They will not be there. There will be no reflection or anything on the part that has opacity. Okay, so just make sure that you know the difference between the two. If you want your material itself to be see-through, you will select refract. But if you want some holes in your material, then you can select opacity. Okay, so for refract, you can change the color from here. Glossiness will make it milky in a way, so the light will come through, but then you cannot see the outside. The IOR is the index of refraction. Make sure that you change it just to get a bit more realistic rendering. You can search for this number in Google. So the refraction, the IOR for water is different than glass, and so on. The maximum depth is the same, and then we have affect shadows. Okay, so affect shadows means that, for example, the sun rays, will they come inside the building or not, or will they pass through the material or not? So if they're not passing, just make sure that you click on affect shadows to see the effect of the sun inside your building. Okay, for the maps, we have diffuse, we have reflect. The things that we've explained are diffuse, reflect, R glossiness, personal IOR, refract, glossiness, IOR, and then we have bump, displace, and opacity. So all the things that we've talked about, you can add a map to them. Okay, so for reflection, for example, we said that black is matte, white is highly glossy. If you want part of your material to be matte and part of it to be glossy, you can add a black and white material here. So let me just make sure that, or let me just search for something. So let's say that I want a white and black map, okay, or pattern or anything. Okay, I'll just search for pattern. So let's say I have this one. Okay, if you want part of it to be black, part to be white, you can use this pattern. For example, you can use any black and white pattern. Why I'm using black and white pattern? Because this will make sure that I have glossy and I have matte. Otherwise, if I use a gradient, this will create differences in glossiness, which is something that you can do whenever you want this to happen. So I'll just try it on, for example, this map, so you can see the difference. So I'll just save this image. When you're using black and white, make sure that you don't have these names in here, okay? Because this will affect your glossiness. Just search for something without any cruelty or royalty stamps. So I go to my folder in maps. Sorry, I'll just save this as pattern. Sorry about this. Pattern, and that's it. Now when you add this to your reflection, refraction, whatever, it will control the amount of the effect that you want. So if I click here on bitmap, or sorry, reflection, and then bitmap, I can go to my folder, which is this one, maps, and select this. Okay, so I added this map now in opacity, I think. No, okay, and reflection. So when you add it in reflection, you'll see that these parts now, they are reflective. These parts are not. Why these are highly reflective? Because I have personal reflection on. If I close it, okay, it will still, you can still see the effect. Let me just make it bigger. You can see it here that you have this part, which is the reflective, and then we have some matte areas. Okay, so this is something that you can do. Otherwise, you can keep it this way, and then you can change the effect here. And instead of it being 100%, you can change it, for example, to 40%. Okay, so this will make it a bit less reflective. Okay, now I'll add this here. Go to show shaded material, and it's supposed to show me the material here. If I can't see it, or if I have any issues with it, this means that I need to add UVW map. A lot of you, they were asking me some questions about the maps, and the issue that they had is that they are not adding UVW map. So just make sure that you always add to any object with a material with an image, you have to add UVW map all the time. Okay, just select box. If your original image is square, make sure that you change the length and width and height to be all the same number. So 500 by 500 by 500, for example, this is up to you. And then I'm just changing these because it will make it easier for me to scale the material. Okay, so I'll just click on UVW map. You can move it, you can rotate it, and you can scale it. One of the shortcuts that I've noticed no one is using are the move, rotate, and scale. So I have W for move, E for rotate, and R for scale. You don't have to go up, select move, and then go down, and then go up, select rotate, and go down. Okay, this will take a lot of time from you. So to save time, always make sure that you use the shortcuts. Okay, so R for scale, and then you can scale up or down. You can use X-axis only. You can use y-axis only, you can use x and y, and then you can use 3 of them together. Okay, make sure that you know the difference, because for example, if you're in the top view and you select these only, it will change the x and y without the z-axis, either for UVW map or for blocks or for anything. So some of the students, they're just using these two for the blocks, and this will create some issues. Some of you, you're using just the x-axis, some of you just the y-axis, without knowing that you really need this. Okay, so just make sure to know if if the axis only is yellow, this means that you're selecting the x-axis only. If the area between these two is yellow, this means that this is x and y. But then if you have this triangle, this means x, y, and z all together. Okay, so let's say this is my material. Now, because I have two maps in the material, always make sure that you change both of them. Okay, so I will go to the reflect map, show it, and then I will change the scale here. For this map, I will not use UVW map because this will not be useful for me. What I will do in this case, I will go to tiling. Okay, if you change it from UVW map, this will affect your diffuse map as well. I don't want to change the diffuse. I'm satisfied with it. Here for the tiling, I will change it, for example, to 0.5 and 0.5, which will make it bigger. Or you can increase this number, which will make the pattern smaller. Okay, again, this is up to you. You can work with it however you want. Okay, so just to make sure that we're covering all the maps, diffuse is for color, reflect is for refraction, or glossiness to make some parts matte, but they are still, you can see the light effect in them. We have refract, which is if you want your object to be opaque or if you want it to be see-through. We have glossiness to make, if you have, for example, a pattern, you want to add it here in the maps, it will make part of the glass frosted and the other part is clear. You have bump, which is the texture, which is very important to use. We have displace, which was similar to bump. It will give you a texture, but it will be much more effective. And then we have opacity, which will create the opacity in the material itself. So just go through these maps, revise the presentations that we gave you for how to create each material. But if you already know the settings, you will not even need the settings that we gave you. You can go through the material itself and create the material that you want according to the settings that you already know. Okay, so I'll just create one more material, which is the wall material. So first of all, again, we go to vray MTL, change this to wall paint, and then change the diffuse. For example, I'll change it to white. Go to reflection, I'll add a little bit of reflection, change the R glossiness to 0.7 or 0.8, and then I'll go to bump, and I will add a texture. Always make sure that you know if you have a texture or not. If I keep it this way, it will be, for example, plastic or ceramic or something like this. It will not be a wall paint. Okay, so I just go to desktop, the maps tools, and then I have these maps here, and I'll go to stuccos, and then I will select a texture. Whatever texture you want is fine. So if you want something that is not really strong, you can go with that. Okay, and if you want to make the texture less or the bump less, you can go here and change this, for example, to 15. Okay, now I will add it to my object here. Make sure that you go to bump, open it, and then show the material. And then select this object, add UVW map. If you don't, you can see that the map, it's not okay, it will not show realistic. Okay, so I'll change this, for example, to 700 by 700 by 700. I'm just doing these numbers to make it easier for me. Then I can open UVW map and scale it. Okay, I'll do the same thing for this object, you can drag this UVW map to the object and you will have the same scale, the same direction and everything. You don't need to do anything more. Just make sure that you show the shaded material in a viewport so you can have it this way. Next we'll cover the camera, which is a lot of you know that you have two types of cameras. You have the vray camera and you have the physical camera. The vray camera used to be in 3D Max. You can find it in camera, and then you go to vray and you will find it. But then after they added the physical camera, they've removed the vray camera. So if some of us were still used to the old one, so we have it in a file and then we just drag it as a block. Otherwise, you can see here the physical camera. You can use it. You'll have the same settings, the same things that you will need. You will find them here. So from the top view, so T, F3 to switch between wireframe and the shaded material, view. So F3, so I can just see what's going on inside. I'll take the physical camera and let's say I'll add it from here, for example, in this direction. After you add the camera, just click on C, F3, okay, and click on the scroll and move it up. Move it up this way, which means that you will move the camera and the target together. And you will see here that you have the Z axis, so whenever you're going up or down, you can see your view. Make sure that you have your same frame on, and then go to the camera settings so you can select the camera from here instead of going to the top view and selecting the camera. So select camera, go to modify and change the settings. So we have the width here for the camera, the film width. You can change it to, for example, 45, focal length to 30. These are all in millimeters. Okay, so this will give you a bit realistic view. Sorry, 35. Realistic view of if you were in the site itself or if you're in the space itself, how you can view the space. Okay. Then we'll not cover all of these. We'll just move to the shutter speed. For the shutter speed, this is a camera. So the shutter speed, or the whenever it closes faster, the amount of light that is coming inside will be less. Okay, so when you increase this number, the lighting of your image will be less. So what I will do here, I will decrease it to increase the lighting without the need of adding extra lights to the scene. So let's say I'll keep it 1 to 100. This will make my render lighting better and without adding any extra lightings. Then for the exposure, you can change it here to manual. Exposure is a number that if you increase, the lighting in your scene will increase as well. So if it's, for example, 500, the lighting will be less, but if I change it to 800, it will be more. Okay. Usually, I like to cap it to 800 or 1000. If you go higher than that, you might find some grains in your image, or it will start to burn. Okay. So let's just keep it as 800. Now, just check quick render by clicking on Shift and Q. And you can see that our lighting is really good so far, since we still don't have any lighting in the scene. Okay, so the next step is to start adding the lighting. So for the lighting, we have two types. We have natural lighting and we have the artificial lighting. The natural lighting is the sunlight. So if I go to vray sun, you can go to the top view and add it to your scene. So wherever you want the sun direction to be, this is up to you. So for example, I'll start adding from here, drag the target and place it inside. Okay. Then from the front view, just move your sun up, just a little bit above the building. You don't need to move it all the way up as if you're mimicking the real sun. Just here is fine. From these settings, make sure that it's invisible because it's really near the building. I'll make sure that it's invisible so I can't see it. The intensity multiplier is the power of the sun. So let's just go to the camera and see the difference. So now I have 1, which is really high, okay? So what I will do here, I will change it to 0.05, and then you can increase it whenever you feel the need for that. So now you will see that it's a bit more natural. It's giving you a much realistic effect. You can take it less than that, but then when you add the okay, so let's go to the size multiplier. So for the size multiplier, you can see that here now it's 1. So you'll see that these lines are sharp. Okay, so if you don't want them to be this sharp, you can change the size multiplier. So let's try 8, for example, and I will just render this part so you can see the difference. Okay, so you can see that the lines here, they are softer, more blur. This is because of the intensity multiplier, sorry, the size multiplier. Okay, so the difference between this one and this one is the size multiplier. So if you have a pattern here, you will not be able to see the pattern if you increase the size multiplier. If you don't have any patterns, you just have the windows, you can increase this just to make it a bit more realistic. Okay, so I'll just keep it as 8. Then for the shadow subdivisions, so you don't have any noises, you can increase it to 15. Shadow bias is, for example, if you have an object and whenever the shadow bias is less, the shadow will be closer to the object. Since we're trying to mimic the real sun, it's better that you change this to 0.05, for example, or 0.02. Okay, whenever the number is smaller, the shadow will be longer, which will create a more realistic render. I see any difference now because we don't have anything to give shadow to here. And then for the photon emit radius, I'll increase this, for example, to 5,000 or 500. This is again up to you. This is how much you want the photons of the lighting to be diffused in the scene. Okay, so for a small room like this, I usually keep it as 2000, and then you can render it this way. Okay, you will not see these numbers, you will not see the effect clearly here in the render. It will affect it generally when you add all the other materials and everything. It will be a bit more realistic. Okay, so this is regarding the sun. If I have any other lighting, I'll just give you a break, 10 minutes, and we'll come back in 12:25. Okay, I'll add the other blocks and then we can continue with the other things that we need to cover. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, just write them down for me so I can answer them after the break. Okay. So I hope you're all back. As you can see, I added some blocks to the scene, but then I have this issue with the lighting not going through this glass. So I'll just check the material quickly for this block by selecting this material. I can see that this is a missing material, which means I need to create a material from the beginning. So I'll just type vray MTL and then change the diffuse, for example, to a very light blue. Change the reflection, increase it a little bit, and maybe remove personal reflection. And then for the refraction, I'll keep it a very light gray. Okay, you can take it all the way down, but this will make it very clear. You will not be able to see the blue color. Okay, and that's it. So now when I render, it's supposed to be better. If you add a glass material and then you have an issue of the sun not coming inside this way, for example, what you can do is you can just make sure that you select the material and then click on Effect Shadow. Okay. Okay, so now this is much better. I thought that I had an issue with the material itself, but then it turns out that it's not the curtain, it's the window. And just change the opacity here, for example, to 50, and then that's it. Light which came already with lighting. Okay, so you can see that we have vray lights inside, and then the spheres are they have opacity. But I still need more lighting in the scene. So I'll just create a quick design in the ceiling. I'll just take this ceiling, okay, Control V, copy, and then for the copy, I'll go to editable spline, click on 3, select this part, and then outline it, for example, let's say 1 meter. So it's coming outside, which means I need to type minus 1000. Okay, so now I have this. This 1000 includes the 200 that I have for the wall. So if I want it to be less, I can change this. Or let me just make minus 200, delete the outer one. And then what I will do, I will keep a bit of space here for the curtain. Okay, so I'll go to 1, which is vertices. Select these 2 vertices. And the y-axis, I'll move them, for example, 250. Okay, usually we keep 250 to 300 in real life. And then I'll go to 3, and then change the outline here to minus 1000, for example, which will give me this end result. Okay, so when I go to the camera now, the ceiling is there, but it's up. So I'll change the extrude to be 50, for example. Then align this to the ceiling. So the align option that we have is very useful. Align to ceiling. I don't want to change the X and Y axis. I just want to use the Z axis. So I want the maximum of the object to be to the minimum of the target. Okay, but then I need to keep some space in between. So right click in the Z axis, minus, for example, 150. So I have a gap now between the 2 ceilings. This gap needs to be filled, otherwise it's not realistic. It will give you an issue with the lighting later on. So what I will do is I'll just go to the ceiling itself, copy it, go to the editable spline, select this one, and then outline, for example, 200, and delete this one. Okay, so this is in the copy itself. And then if you want to add lights here, hidden light for the curtain, you can select these 2 vertices and again move them in the y-axis 200. So now I have this part. The extrusion is supposed to be 150. Let's just make sure that we align it to the ceiling. So it will be this way. So if I go to the front view, F3. Let me just hide these so everything will be clear. Okay, so you can see that this is the drop ceiling, the false ceiling, and then this is the filling that we have, and then we have the original ceiling. Okay, so this is how you're supposed to do it. Now for the hidden light, I will go to F3, top view, T, F3, and then select light, vray, and vray light. In this case, I will use plain light, and then I will select this part. You can either draw it here, and then rotate, and then go to the front view and move it from the ground up, or you can do something else, which is the perspective. Okay, so inside the room itself, what I will do is I'll just keep this in front of me, take vray light, open auto grid, so it will draw directly on this surface. Okay, so I'll create the lighting, rotate so I can have the arrow in this direction, move it down, and then just from the top view, make sure that you move it a little bit to the front, because if this small circle is inside the object, it will not give me any lighting. Okay, shift and rotate. Instance, and then move it using W to this part, R to scale, W to move, and then shift and rotate 180 degrees, instance, and move it this way. But then here I need to scale it again because I have a curve, and I will create lighting for the curve later on. Make sure that you're using instance, otherwise you'll have to change the settings for each and every one separately. Okay, I'll keep it here, and then again skip. Okay, I'll do the curve part later. I just want to make sure that all the settings are correct. So it is instance because I can see it here in bold. Change the multiplier and the color. So let's say I'll go with something a bit yellowish. You can change the color from here, or you can change the color to temperature as well. So in temperature, you can change the temperature to, for example, 4,000, 3,500. When it's lower, it will give you a more orange or yellow color. If it's higher, it will give you a bluish tones as well. So let's go to render and try render. Okay, so I have the lighting now. What I need to do is just make sure when you go to options, make it invisible. Otherwise, you can see the lighting source here. So just make it invisible. You can increase it here or decrease it according to what you want. So let's make it, for example, 40, and then I will change the temperature here to 5,000 just to make the image a bit more natural. Okay, so if everything is fine, you can keep it this way. Just go to the top view and continue with this part. Because this is a curve, what I will do is I'll just create a quick circle. You don't have to do this if you know how to do it. You don't have to do this. I'll just do this to help me or to guide me in working faster with the curve. Okay, so I'll try to have this here. I think this is fine. Okay, so this is just a guide. It's just a circle. What I will do now is shift and copy. Okay, instance. Make sure that this is scaled to be very small. And then in the y-axis, I will make sure that it's centered with the circle. Okay, so when I rotate, I'm rotating 90 degrees. I don't have any issues with the center. Okay, so it's here. You can even make it smaller. That's fine. Then go to hierarchy, affect pivot only, and then align to the circle. In X and Y, make sure it's pivot to center, and then close this. Okay, this will help me in rotating the object. So shift, rotate. For example, 10 degrees is fine for the scale that I'm using, and then create these copies. If you need more, you can just rotate 10 degrees since you have object snap on. Okay, so just make sure that you select all of these, and then make sure that they're all inside. If you have any issues or your circle was not correct, you can move it this way. So this is the easy way to create these, and instead of rotating, copying, rotating, and so on, this would be easier for you. Then just make sure that the effect is fine, you don't have any issues. That's it, you can continue working regularly. Okay. One more type of lighting. Of course, this plain light, you can use it in multiple ways. So you have plane, you have dome, you have sphere, mesh, and disk. So disk is a circular vray light similar to the plane. Okay, a sphere is the sphere that we have inside here as well. So they're all the same. Mesh is when you create an object or a visible poly and you turn it into a light, which is something that is useful sometimes. And then we have dome, which we usually use for the exterior rendering. So you can add a dome with a very small amount of intensity, so 0.5, and it will give you, if you add an HDRI to it, it will give you the texture that you want inside. But we'll not go through all of this today, no need for that. Yeah, next we have the IES, which is very important, but still I see a lot of students not using this. This is what will give you the shade and shadow and the effects that will make your render more realistic. So usually IES is an effect that shows from the spotlight or from the track lights and so on. So I'll just create a spotlight quickly here, and instead of adding a block, I'll just create one quickly. But I always prefer that you add a block since this will make it more realistic. So I'll just open AutoGrid here, or without AutoGrid, let's create it from the top again. Okay, so let's say I will add the spotlights here. So this is the first one. I'll take the radius, I'll change it to 100, and then the height to 10. Okay, and then let's just go to P, perspective, F3, Z for zoom, sorry, F3, okay. So whenever you're creating any cylinders, make sure that you increase the sides so you don't have these issues. Align to the ceiling and the Z axis, maximum to minimum. Okay, and then you can decrease the segments for the height, and then I'll just make a copy, quick copy, and decrease the radius to let's say 80, and increase the height to 12. Okay, so again, align to the ceiling. So now I have the inner part, which I will use as lighting later on. For this part, you can add editable or edit poly, select this, and then select this part, and then select loop, sorry, not ring, select loop, which is supposed to select the lower part altogether. If this is not happening from the front of you, you can select these parts and then Alt to remove the vertical lines. And that's it. Okay, and then you can select chamfer from here. So all of these details you're creating if you don't have the block. Otherwise, if you have a block, you don't need to do all of this. So chamfer, increase the segments, and that's it. We have this lighting. For this one, Control V to copy. Select this object, go to compound object, prop boolean, start picking or boolean, and remove this part. And then you can remove this inside. Okay, so we'll add material for the inner part and for the outer part, of course. So for the outer part, let's create a quick vray MTL. Change it, for example, to black, and we'll add a bit of reflection to it, and we'll make it 0.8. Okay, so just a quick material for this part. For the inner part, this is the part that will have lighting in it. So I'll create a very light material. Very light material is used for any part that is luminous, that will be a source of light. For example, this part, any lamps that we have, anything that will be a source of light. And then we'll use very light material as well for TVs, for a projector, which are also a source of light, but instead of just changing the color and intensity, we will add an image to it as well. Okay, so I'll just change this to this color, for example, increase this, add these three texts, and add it to this. Okay, so now from the top view, I'll just copy this. Make sure that you group it, which will make it much easier for you. So I'll group lighting, shift, or let me just copy it in this direction first. This is just a grid that I'm creating now, but I prefer that you don't do this in your designs. Okay, so for 3D Max, that's fine, but in your designs, always make sure that you think about your lighting. You don't just add it as a grid to your scene, because this is not a professional way. This is just having the light just for lighting. There is no purpose for the light. So whenever you're designing anything, make sure that you have a purpose. For example, I will add 2 or 3 spotlights above the table to illuminate the place where we're eating, add spotlights above some objects that we have, some decorations, paintings, and so on. Lighting above the buffet tables, something like that. So make sure that your lighting follows the function, because this is something that I've noticed in your designs and you are not focusing on. Anyways, we have the lightings now. I will add the IES file. IES is not, here you're working with 3D Max, which is a software, so you don't have to follow exactly the spots or the lighting that you have. You want to create the feeling that you will have in real life. But if you just have, for example, an IES, let's just create it from the front view, which will be easier for us. So this is the lighting. Click, drag down. Okay, so as simple as that. And then from the top view, keep both the lighting and the target under the lighting. If you keep it this way, this means that the lighting will just drop down from each light, which is not something that you want to have in your design. It will be a very like one tone of lighting that you have. But if you change the direction, this will give it a much more interesting lighting effect, and it will make it a bit more realistic. So basically, to add an IES, you will create an IES, add it to the scene as I did now. And then what you will do is you will select the target and move it to wherever you want the effect to be. So let's say I want this to illuminate the door. I'll keep it this way. But always make sure that you go to modify and add an IES file. So you have files that we gave you. There are around 400 or 500 effects. You can see these IES files. You have something narrow, something wide, up, down, both. So you can select whichever you think is good for your design. Let's say I will go with this one for now. I will copy the image, the IES file, and go to desktop, my folder, IES, and add it here. Okay, and then this will make it easier for me to have all the files in one place and not get lost when searching for anything. Select the IES file. And that's it. We have the effect. Select both, copy, and don't make it just a copy and leave it this way. So now I have these copies. but then change the target. So this is, for example, to this area. This will target this area, for example. This will give lighting for this part, and this will affect this part, and so on. Change the location of your IES to give it, or the direction to give it a more interesting look for your render. So if I render now, you will see that the lighting has increased because of the IES files. You can increase the power from here. So let's say I'll go with 5,000. You don't have to do this, but if you want to, you can. That's it. So we've created the scene. We've added blocks, added lighting, materials, and so on. You can go through all the details in your presentations. And of course, if you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. But for now, what I want to cover is the cameras or the rendering, which is something that will be useful for your next design. So let's say I have two cameras. I have this one, I have this one. Sometimes we have 10, 12, 15, 30 cameras. So I noticed that a lot of students, what they're doing, you're just going to the camera itself, render it, and then wait for the render to finish, save it, and then open another camera, and so on. So if each camera will take an hour and you have 20 cameras, so you have to stay awake for 20 hours just working with the camera, render, wait, save, render, wait, save, which will take a lot of time for you, from you, that you can do other things on. So there is something in 3D Max called batch render, which will be very useful for your final render. So I'll just go here to batch, click on add, and then from here I will change the output path where you want to save your render. This is the first view. So in the renders, let's say this is dining 01, or you can click on plus later on. So, and I need the save as to be JPG. Click on plus and OK. So this is the first view. OK, it will save in this path with this name, and I want to render the physical camera 01. OK, so this is the first one. Another thing that you can do, you can override the preset from here. So if I'm working with 500 and I don't want to change that every time, I can override this, type the width to be 2000 and the height to be 1000 or 1414. Okay. So this is something you can do from here. Otherwise, you can keep it closed and then you change the number and it will render all the images with the number that you have here. Okay, so this has advantages and disadvantages. You can check whichever method is better for you. So duplicate view number 2. I want it to be saved in the same folder, but I will click on plus to change the name to dining 2. Change the camera to physical camera 2. Duplicate plus and change the camera. So now I have all the views. When I click on render, it will start rendering the first image. It will finish rendering, save it, start the second one, finish, save, third, fourth, fifth, and so on until you're done with all the renders that you need. Okay, so no need for waiting for the renders to finish to start the next one. Whenever you want to skip any camera, just click on escape once. Okay, it's supposed to go to the next one directly. For me, when I click on escape, it will escape everything together. Okay, this is something that I've changed from the settings. When you click on escape once, it will go to the next camera. If you click on escape twice, it will stop the batch render. Just make sure that when you're rendering a batch render, to click render from here, not shift Q, not from up here. If you click on the normal render, it will not render all these cameras. It will just render whatever you have here and it will stop. Okay, so this is something as well that I've seen a lot happen. Just make sure that you click on render from batch render. Okay, again, you will go to rendering, batch render, and you will work with the scenes, add all the views, and then click on render. Okay, I'll just cover the animation quickly because I still have some questions, or I still get some questions regarding the difference between uh, set key and auto key. Okay, so I'll just cover this quickly. So I have this door, and if I want to rotate this door, okay, I need to make sure that I select everything and group it first. I'll just remove the frame. So detach from the group, and then go to group and close, and I have this door now separate. So if I want to rotate this door, I need to rotate from this axis. So I need to go to hierarchy, affect pivot only, align it to the object, and the y-axis only, pivot point to minimum. So now when I rotate anything, it will rotate from here. Close, affect pivot only, otherwise you will have issues. And then let's go to the camera and we'll see what will happen. Okay, so we have auto key and we have set key. So the first thing I will do, I will configure the time. So for the time configuration, let's say I want 3 seconds. Each second is 30 frames, which means I need 90 frames. Okay, so 30 by 3, 90. So for the first second, which is 0 to 30, I don't want to do anything with the door. Okay, so I will move here to 30. Okay, if I open auto key and I start from here, from 30, start rotating, it will start from 0 anyways. Okay, it will not start from 30. So what you need to do if you're using auto key, you need to click here on set key. So you're always using both together. Okay, but if you're clicking on set key, then in this case, you will, when you click on set key, you will have the keys set here for a move, rotate, and scale. You will not need to use both. The difference that we have between set key and auto key is that auto key will affect each function at a time. So I have auto key for move, rotate, and scale. So let's say I'll open auto key. At 30, I want to rotate, so it's rotating. But then at 20, let's say I want to move, so it's moving here. So you can see I have red, I have green, so it will start all from 0, which you can move, by the way. You don't have to start from 0. But then it will affect the movement separately and then the rotation separately as well. Sorry. For set key, no. Let me just delete these. Okay. Sorry. Okay. For set key, no. If I go here to 20 and move, and then I click on set key, and then I go to 30 and rotate, and click on set key, what will happen? It will, from 0 to 20, nothing will happen. Okay. From 20, oh, sorry, I forgot to add a set key from the beginning as well. So from 0 to 20, it will start moving. From 20 to 30, it will turn. So rotate and move are all, they're all having this key. I cannot rotate from 15 to 30 and move from 0 to 20, no. This will not work because I'm using set key. If I want to have different keys for move, different keys for rotate, different keys for scale, then I have to use auto key. Otherwise, this will not work if you're using set key. Okay, but this doesn't mean that you cannot use the combination of both when you're working. So let's say now I want to rotate. Okay. So I'll just delete these for now. So what I will do from 0 to 30, the first second, I don't want to move anything. From 0 to 30, I will click on set key. So nothing will happen from 0 to 30. But then from 30 to 60, when I reach 60, I will just rotate it 90 degrees. Okay. So now, sorry, I forgot to use auto key. So this is auto key is open now. So I will rotate 90 degrees. So now you can see that I have a key for rotation. And then when I go to 90, I will rotate it back 90 degrees. Okay, so from 0 to 30, I have nothing happening with either move, rotate, or scale. I have a set key to start everything from 30, but then using auto key, I added these two keys. Okay, so I have this function. Again, if you're using set key, you're setting a key for the three functions together, move, rotate, and scale. If you're using auto key, you're working with each one separately. So now if I still have auto key on, again, from 0 to 30, nothing will happen because I used set key to add this key here. But then here in 40, I can, for example, move this door. And then if I go here to 70, I can move it this way, for example. Okay, so you will see that from 30 to 40, it's moving, but then again, at the same time, from 30 to 60, it's rotating. Okay, and then again, from 40 to 70, it's moving in the y-axis, but from 60 to 90, it's rotating as well. Okay, so this is basically the difference between set key and auto key. I think that's it for today. Again, this session is just for you to know how to use the 3D Max quickly to create a scene. As you can see, we're almost done with the scene. We just need to add more materials, more accessories, and that's it. And we've done this in less than 2 hours. If you have any questions or anything else that you want me to cover, let me know. You can go through the presentations that you have for the finals, including lighting, materials, walkthrough animation, advanced modeling, and InDesign, of course, is included in your finals. If you have any questions you want me to cover for today, just let me know now. Otherwise, we will end this session, and if you have any questions, you can always ask me. Otherwise, if you want another session to cover InDesign or any other topics, let me know as well.
Hi, Miss.
Hello. Yes.
أهلا. أول شيء يعطيك العافية على المحاضرة المفيدة. وثاني شيء ذاك المرة في الإنديزاين يوم كنت بسوي نمبرينج يعني سويت دراج إنه مثلا الصفحة ذي ما فيها نمبرز عشان إنه أغير عشان يصير مثلا يبتدي من الصفحة الثانية اللي قبل الأخيرة. ما يصير دائما يصير إنه في واحدة تصير خلل ورقم 2 يتكرر.
اوكي قصدك الماستر بيج لما تحطينها عليهم ولا؟
إيه.
اوكي. المفروض انه ما يصير عندك خلل في الارقام الا اذا انت سويتي اكثر من سكشن، قسمتي الصفحات حق اكثر من سكشن، هني بيصير في عندك في كل سكشن نمبر 2. اوكي. otherwise انت في الاي ماستر مثلا اذا انا ما ابي احط النمبرنج على اول صفحه واخر صفحه مثلا، you can create a master page for each one separately. I create master page A حق 1 and 6, and then I will duplicate this and add another one, and this master page will be for 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so if you add any numbering here, it will add it automatically. So I will just drag this to these two. Sorry. Okay, and then you'll not have any issues. Otherwise, you might have created some sections inside. Dr. Noor, she's saying that make sure you select a new list. If you do not, sometimes it doesn't create a new number. I think this is for the figures as well. So if you're talking about figures, yes, you need to create a new list. Otherwise, you'll have issues. But if you're talking about the page number, usually it's not an issue with the listing. It's an issue with section. So which one do you mean?
أنا قصدي النمبر يعني أرقام الصفحات.
أرقام الصفحات, the page number. Okay. If you have the file as well, you can share it with me, and I will check the problem as well if it's something that we're saying. Otherwise, I'll let you know if we have another solution. Okay.
دقيقة بس
Any other
بطلع.
questions? Okay. Okay. So do you have any other questions meanwhile? Thank you, Dr. Noor. Thank you for attending as well. Okay, so I will stop recording this session and I'll share the link with you and all the other students who didn't attend today. I hope that this was useful for you. Again, if you have any questions, let me know anytime. You can contact me through Teams and I'll answer all your questions.
أوكي، مساء الخير.